There is a version of you that has mastered the art of sabotage. He doesn't shout, doesn't scream. He whispers, quietly, subtly. He's the one who speaks just when you're about to do the work. Maybe later, he says. You've had a long day. He calls himself your friend, but he's a traitor. He's the reason your goals remain unfinished. He's the one who steps in every time life gets hard and convinces you to sit down, back off, or run. And here's the truth. As long as you let him live, you will never rise. Because that weak version of you doesn't die naturally. He doesn't fade over time. He must be hunted, cornered, and killed with precision. You see, he is comfortable. He is well fed on excuses and delay. He wears your old habits like armor habits that once protected you from failure but now imprison you in mediocrity. You don't need him anymore. He is not your protection. He is your prison. You know him well. He's the voice that says, "Why try when you always fail?" He's the one that hits snooze, that skips the gym, that breaks promises when no one's watching. He craves ease, loves softness, and panics at the first sign of pressure. He's not evil. He's familiar. But make no mistake, he is dangerous. Because the longer you let him whisper, the more your dreams decay. The more you let him speak, the more you forget the sound of your true voice. The one that says, "Rise." The one that says, "Finish what you start." The one that says you were not made to crawl. That voice is still inside you, but it's being drowned by the coward. The coward in your head that fears pain, fears judgment, fears effort. You must kill that coward, not with anger, but with action. Not by hating him, but by outgrowing him. Every time you move forward, despite the fear, you stab him. Every time you do the thing you said you would, even when it's hard, even when it's cold, even when no one is clapping, you starve him. Eventually, he withers. Eventually, he dies. And what's left? A man who no longer negotiates with weakness. A man who doesn't fold when life applies pressure. A man who shows up tired, unsure, afraid, but still shows up. You don't need to be fearless. You need to be fed up. Fed up with quitting. Fed up with being the guy who always had potential, but never delivered. That version of you must die. And you, the disciplined, decisive, relentless version, must rise. This is not about perfection. It's about a decision. Kill that weak version of you, and finally become the man who never stops moving forward. No one is coming. Let that truth echo in your bones until it silences the illusion. There is no cavalry, no rescuer, no secret mentor who will appear at the perfect moment to hand you the map, carry your burden, and make the path smooth. You are alone, and that is your greatest gift. Because the moment you stop waiting to be saved is the moment you start becoming the savior. Most men spend their lives leaning on others, waiting, hoping someone will notice their struggle, validate their pain, or fix what's broken. But life doesn't reward hope. It rewards action. The world doesn't hand out strength. It watches silently while you either break or rise. And if you rise, not only do you earn its respect, you earn your own. Look around. What pieces of your life have you been waiting for someone else to fix? Your finances, your discipline, your health, your purpose. Ask the harder question. What if no one ever does? What if no one ever shows up to make it easier? What if this is it, just you, the weight and the work? Would you crumble or would you build? Imagine a man stranded in the wilderness. No map, no guide, no applause, just silence. And yet with bare hands and grit, he sharpens a blade against stone, builds shelter from trees, and creates fire from friction. That man doesn't waste time wishing for a rescue. He becomes the rescue. He doesn't curse the silence he sharpens in it. That man is you when you stop seeking a way out and start carving a way forward. The weak version of you waits for help. The strong version helps himself. He doesn't beg for fair conditions. He trains in the unfair. He doesn't whine about lacking resources. He becomes resourceful. He doesn't wait to be chosen. He chooses himself. That's the turning point. Not talent, not luck. Choice. So choose yourself again and again and again. Choose yourself in the early hours when it's easier to sleep. Choose yourself when failure visits and whispers, "You're not enough." Choose yourself when no one claps, when the road stretches endlessly, when you're tired, lost, and doubting, because that's where transformation happens. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're just unused to carrying your own weight. But you can. And you must. Because the world owes you nothing. And that, my friend, is the most liberating truth you'll ever embrace. No expectations, no guarantees, no shortcuts. Just you, and the fire, and the will to walk through it. Inspiration is fragile. It flares, flickers, and fades often when you need it most. Discipline, on the other hand, is firewood. Quiet. Reliable. It doesn't wait for the mood to strike. It burns because you strike the match. Most men wait. They sit idle, hoping for a wave of motivation to push them forward. But the strong man knows waves are unpredictable. Some days they never come. So he rose, slowly, steadily. Because progress isn't about how you feel. It's about what you do when you feel nothing at all. Discipline is power, not punishment power. It is how a man becomes dependable in a world of excuses. It is how he builds when others delay. It is how he finishes when others fall away. Think of a farmer. He doesn't wait until he feels ready to sow the seeds. He works the land in the cold, in the rain, in the heat, because harvests are earned. A man who rises daily, who trains when tired, who shows up when uninspired, that man eats while others starve. Discipline is the bridge between vision and reality. You can see the future all you want, but without discipline, it stays imaginary. The weak version of you thinks discipline is harsh. He sees it as restriction. But the strong version of you knows better. Discipline is freedom. Freedom from regret. Freedom from starting over again and again. Freedom from the emotional chaos of waiting for the right time. Right time. The right time is now. Structure doesn't suffocate you. It saves you. It gives your energy a direction. It takes chaos and carves it into clarity. Your mornings matter. Your words matter. Your rituals matter. They're not random. They're not small. They are the bricks that build a life of unshakable strength. Do you want to be unstoppable? Then stop treating discipline like a burden and start treating it like your birthright, because greatness does not bloom under inspiration. It is forged in repetition, in habit, in structure. The warrior does not sharpen his blade when battle begins. He sharpens every day in silence, so when the battle arrives, he's already ready. That's the power of discipline. It makes quitting impossible, not because you feel like finishing, but because your life is built on a foundation that never asked for permission to begin. Your word must become sacred. Not just the promises you make to others, but especially the ones you make to yourself. Because when you say "I will" and don't, something inside you cracks. And if you repeat that pattern again and again, the cracks become fractures. Your confidence begins to bleed. The world is filled with men who speak boldly but follow through weakly. They declare goals with fire in their eyes but abandon them the moment no one is watching. And every time they do, they erode their foundation. Not in public collapses, in quiet moments of self-betrayal. But you are not here to live half-hearted. You are not here to make promises just to sound strong. You are here to become a man of his word. Because when your word means something, you mean something. Let's be clear, you don't build integrity with grand gestures. You build it by keeping the small vows. You say you'll get up at 6, get up at 5:30. You say you'll run a mile. Run 2. Not to prove it to others, to prove it to you. Discipline is built on the back of these invisible commitments. Everyone kept is a vote for the man you're becoming. Everyone broken is a step back toward the man you swore you'd never be again. The weak version of you shrinks in the shadows of broken vows. He hits snooze when no one sees. He skips the workout because it's raining. He says, "I'll do it tomorrow," and never does. He whispers these excuses so softly that they sound like truth. But the strong version of you, the one rising from the ashes of that quitter, he doesn't treat promises like suggestions. He treats them like commandments. He knows that trust in yourself is the root of all power, and trust is earned not through emotion, but through evidence. So if you say you'll write the page, write it. If you say you'll show up, show up. If you say you'll become something greater, act like it. Let your word become law, not loud, not for applause, just quiet, relentless, unbreakable. Because when a man's word becomes iron, so does he. You want to lead? Start here. You want to conquer weakness? Start here. You want to change your life? Start here. Keep your promises. To yourself, especially when no one is watching. Comfort is a sedative, a slow-acting poison that numbs your edge until one day you forget you ever had one. And the worst part? It disguises itself as peace. It calls itself balance. But make no mistake, comfort is not your ally. It is the silent assassin of greatness. No empire was built in a feather bed. No warrior was forged in luxury. No visionary was sculpted in ease. Comfort seeks to keep you safe, but it kills your hunger. It whispers, "Take a break when you should be building." It says, "You've done enough when you've barely begun." The weak version of you chases comfort like a starving dog chases scraps. He begs for relief, for softness, for the easiest way out. He confuses rest with reward, but rest is earned, not assumed. And ease is the prize after discipline, not instead of it. Growth demands suffering. Not forever, not endlessly, but deeply. The fire that sharpens a blade must first burn, and so must you. You want to evolve. Then step where fear lives. You want to become someone no one forgets. Then train in the pain that most avoid. The strong version of you walks the road with thorns beneath his feet, wind in his face and doubt in his ear, but he walks anyway. Why? Because he knows transformation does not happen in the warm bath of comfort. It happens in the storm. The people you admire, the ones who built lives of fire and purpose, they didn't run from discomfort. They stood inside it. They didn't gain strength from ease. They gained it from not breaking when every bone inside begged them to retreat. Ask yourself, what have you been avoiding? What challenge have you labeled too hard when it was actually the very thing meant to forge you? Avoiding the pain is not noble. It's self-sabotage. Every time you choose what's easy over what's necessary, you kill a piece of your potential. You don't grow in safety. You grow when tested. You grow by bleeding with intent. So the next time life offers you the hard road, take it. The next time discomfort arrives, don't turn away, lean in. Because it's not trying to break you. It's trying to build you. And you were not made to wither in comfort. You were made to rise in resistance. Failure is not fatal. It's feedback. It doesn't end you, it refines you. It doesn't mean you're done, it means you've just started. But the weak version of you doesn't see it that way. To him, failure is final. It's the excuse he's been waiting for. He stumbles once and says, "See, I knew I couldn't do it." And then without a fight, he folds. That version of you cannot remain. Because if you let him lead, you'll never know who you could have become. Failure is not a stop sign. It's a signal to begin again. Smarter, sharper, stronger. Not because you feel ready, but because you've learned what didn't work. The man who never fails is not strong, he's a liar. The man who grows from failure, he is unstoppable. Think of a child learning to walk. He falls. A lot. He crashes into tables, trips over his feet, cries, but he never says, "Maybe walking isn't for me." He gets up again and again. Because deep inside, before doubt was taught to him, he knows that falling is part of rising. So it is with your dreams. You don't lose when you fail. You lose when you stop. You lose when you hand the pen to failure and let it write your ending. You were not born to walk only smooth paths. You were not created to win on the first try. You were built to fall and rise again until the world cannot ignore your persistence. The strongest people you admire, they bled. They broke. But they refused to stay down. They chose the path of endurance. And that's what built their greatness. Picture a blacksmith at his forge. He shapes a blade, strikes it with fire and force. Sometimes it bends. Sometimes it breaks. Does he quit? No. He strikes again. He tempers again. He changes the angle, adjusts the heat, and keeps going until what was once broken becomes unbreakable. So ask yourself, what have you given up on too soon? What dream have you buried not because it failed, but because you didn't stay long enough? What if your next swing was the one that broke through? What if one more day of effort was all it took? The weak version of you is afraid to look foolish. He's terrified of trying and failing again. But the strong version of you sees every fall as forward momentum. He does not fall back. He falls forward. Every scar you carry is not shame. It's proof that you tried when most stood still. It means you bled for something that mattered, and that makes you dangerous. So don't be afraid to fall. Be afraid to live a life so safe that you never learn how to rise. Stop waiting for motivation. Stop hoping for a lightning bolt to strike your soul and suddenly make everything easy. Because that moment you're hoping for, it's not coming. The weak version of you lives in delay. He says, I'll start when I feel ready, when I'm in the mood, when the stars align. But the man you want to become, he doesn't wait for emotion. He moves from decision. Because real power isn't about being inspired. It's about being unmoved by the lack of inspiration. Action creates energy. Motion sparks momentum. Discipline drives forward even when the fire has gone out. You think the most successful men in history felt like getting up every day and building. They didn't. They moved anyway. Because the secret is this. You don't act because you feel powerful. You feel powerful because you act. That's the trap most never escape. They believe emotion must come before action. But it's the opposite. You train, then confidence appears. You speak, then clarity arrives. You begin, and then the strength finds you in motion. Picture yourself waking up early, not because you're energized, but because you said you would. You lace your shoes, not because you're excited to run, but because you promised yourself you wouldn't break your word. That's what builds you. That's what forges the man who finishes. The weak version of you is addicted to feeling. He needs to be in the mood. He needs the right playlist, the right weather, the perfect setting. But the strong version of you, he creates the moment. He doesn't wait for wind, he rows. And in that decision to act without emotion, you separate yourself from the 99%. Because most people live at the mercy of their mood, but not you. Not anymore. From now on, you act because you command yourself to. You get up, you move, you build. Not because the mood strikes, but because that's who you are. That is how legacies are built. That is how greatness begins. Not with fire in your chest, but with a quiet voice that says go and a body that obeys. So move, even if you tremble, even if you don't feel ready, even if no one is watching. Move and the feeling will follow. Your quiet work matters. Not just the hours spent grinding, not just the sweat poured in silence, but the very fact that you showed up when no one asked you to. That is self-respect. That is where real confidence is born. The weak version of you craves applause. He checks the scoreboard after every rep. He wants validation, attention, praise. If no one sees it, he doubts it counts. He builds only when there's an audience. But the strongest men in history, they were built in obscurity. Their power came from repetition no one witnessed. Their strength was forged in moments the world ignored. Every early morning when you rise before the sun. Every rep when your body aches. Every task you complete, without recognition. These are the moments that shape your identity. Not the highlight reel, not the finish line, the hidden labor. You want to become someone worth trusting. Then trust yourself when no one's watching. Be the man who follows through even when it's thankless. Because here's what most don't understand. You don't get strong when people cheer. You get strong when no one notices and you do it anyway. Picture a man building a temple in the forest. No road, no sign, no camera. He hauls stone after stone, alone. And one day, decades later, people arrive and say, "Where did this come from?" But he knows. He remembers the blisters, the silence, the days he almost quit, but didn't. That's the man you must become. The one who claps for himself when the world is asleep. The one who finishes what he starts even if no one ever thanks him. Because self-respect isn't given, it's earned. And you earn it by doing hard things consistently privately without applause. If you wait to be seen, you'll quit when you're not. But if you learn to see yourself, to honor your own effort, to acknowledge the unseen excellence, then no setback, no critic, no silence can shake you. So today, don't look for praise. Don't search for recognition. Search for one more rep. One more act of effort, one more moment where you keep going because you said you would. Because the man who respects his own grind never quits on himself. You're not tired, you're uninspired. There's a difference, and it matters. Fatigue wears many masks. Sometimes it shows up in the body, but more often it festers in the soul. You feel heavy, slow, distracted, not because you've overworked, but because you've lost touch with your why. The weak version of you doesn't know the difference. He feels dull and immediately says, "I need a break." But the strong version pauses and asks, "Am I exhausted? Or am I disconnected from what drives me?" When you forget your purpose, even small tasks feel crushing. A 5-minute workout becomes a mountain. A to-do list becomes unbearable. And you think what you need is rest. But what you need is meaning. Real energy doesn't come from more sleep. It comes from clarity. It comes from remembering what you swore to build, why you started, who you said you'd become. Picture a man digging for gold. Day after day, the same swing, the same routine, no sign of reward. And then one afternoon, right before his next strike, he stops, tired, frustrated. He puts the pickaxe down and walks away. What he doesn't realize is this: he was one swing away. That's what disconnection does. It blinds you to how close you really are. It whispers, "You're done," when you're inches from breakthrough. So no, you're not weak. You're not lazy. You've just drifted from the fire. Reignite it. Reconnect with your mission. Sit with your vision. Speak with the future version of yourself and ask him, "What am I building this for?" Because once you remember why the fight matters, you don't collapse. You rise. Boredom, burnout. These are often just signs that you're living too far from what lights you up. You've been grinding without grounding, moving without purpose. And that's why everything feels hard. Purpose breathes life into your discipline. It doesn't remove the pain. It justifies it. So before you cancel the workout, skip the writing, abandon the routine. Ask yourself, is this fatigue or is this forgotten purpose? If there's still a spark, however small, that's your signal. That's your fuel. Fan it. Feed it. Because that's all greatness needs to return. A reason to keep going when your body says, stop. Excuses are the native language of weakness. They come dressed as logic, as fairness, even as self-care, but they are thieves. They steal your power one syllable at a time. The weak version of you speaks them fluently. I'm too tired. It's too late. I'll try again tomorrow. And every time those words escape your mouth, you feed the very identity that has kept you small. But you weren't born speaking that language. No child says it's too hard. They fall, they cry, and they try again. Excuses are learned, inherited from fear, from failure, from watching others retreat and calling it wisdom. But what is learned can be unlearned. And it must be, because every excuse you entertain weakens you. Every time you let yourself off the hook, a piece of your power slips away quietly. Do it long enough, and you'll forget you were ever powerful to begin with. You'll begin to believe the lie that greatness is for other people, that your goals are unreasonable, that your dreams are too distant. But they're not. They're waiting on the other side of your excuses. They're waiting for you to kill the sentence that starts with, "I can't," and ends with "maybe later." So here's the test. Would your excuse hold up in a room full of warriors? Would it stand strong in front of the man you swore to become? If not, don't say it. Don't even think it. Replace it with power, with clarity. Say, "I begin now. I go anyway. I move because I said I would." The man who transforms his life does not allow weak words to shape his days. He speaks with intent. He acts without negotiation. He rewrites his inner dialogue from hesitation to decision. And every time he crushes an excuse, he snaps a link in the chain holding him back. One broken link at a time. Until freedom. So the next time you hear that whisper, "It's too hard. It's too late. I'm not ready," interrupt it. Cut it off mid-sentence. Replace it with a command, and act. Because you don't need more permission. You don't need better conditions. You don't need more time. You need fewer excuses. That's the difference between the man who breaks through and the man who breaks down. The world owes you nothing. Not a handout. Not an apology. Not even a fair shot. And that is your greatest advantage if you're willing to see it. The weak version of you clings to the fantasy of being noticed, rescued, rewarded just for showing up. He thinks the universe should recognize his struggle and respond with favor. But life doesn't work like that. It never has. And it never will. There is no grand referee keeping score of your effort. No secret vault of justice balancing the pain you've endured with blessings waiting to drop from the sky. You build or you beg. You choose. But here's the gift inside that brutal truth. When you stop expecting anything from others, you start demanding everything from yourself. That's where your power begins. Because if no one is coming, then you are free. Free to rise without waiting. Free to act without permission. Free to build without validation. The greatest men in history didn't wait to be chosen. They chose themselves. They didn't cry about fairness. They forged their own fate. They didn't curse their conditions. They commanded themselves through them. What about you? Will you sit in bitterness because the world didn't hand you what you hoped for? Or will you rise, scarred, overlooked, and underestimated, and build anyway? The man you must become cannot carry entitlement. That belief that you deserve more just because you've suffered, it's a weight. And it's slowing you down. Tear it out like a weed. Burn it. Replace it with gratitude for the fight. With ownership of your story. With fire to create something the world cannot ignore. Let others complain. Let them wait. You build. Let them dream about being picked. You pick up the hammer and go to work. Because when you take full responsibility, no one can stop you. And when no one gives you anything, everything you earn becomes sacred, real, yours. This is the edge most men never find. They stay on the sideline waiting for something they will never receive. But not you. You're not here to be rescued. You're here to rise. You don't become unstoppable by doing one massive thing. That's the lie the world loves to sell: the overnight success, the big break, the one leap that changes everything. But real life, real strength, it's built differently. It's built in silence, in repetition, in the mundane. You become great by doing small things with honor every single day. Not sometimes, not when it's easy, always. The weak version of you chases intensity. He wants drama. He wants big gestures. He wants change to be loud and obvious. But that version of you dies when you embrace the truth. Consistency is greater than intensity. Execution is louder than excitement. You don't need to run 10 miles today. You need to keep the promise to run 1. You don't need to build an empire today. You need to lay 1 brick straight, focused without compromise. Picture a cathedral rising, stone by stone. Each one seems small, insignificant, until years later it towers above all. You are building the same. And every small win, every early morning, every rep completed, every distraction resisted, they matter. They compound. They don't just build your body, they build your identity. They whisper back, I am a man who finishes. I am a man who follows through. I am who I say I am. That's what rewires your brain. That's what breaks the cycle of quitting. Not a motivational high, but steady, silent proof. So the next time you want to skip the simple thing, remind yourself the simple thing is sacred. That chapter you said you'd read. That walk you said you'd take. That journal entry, that cold shower, that 10 push-ups. They are bricks, and bricks become fortresses. You want to feel confident. Do what you said you would. You want to build self-trust. Keep 1 small promise today and then tomorrow. Not because it's flashy, because it works. So forget the fantasy of sudden transformation. Embrace the reality of daily discipline. Because giants aren't made in moments of glory. They're made in the quiet repetition of unseen victories. Your mind is a battlefield, and if you're not training it daily, you're surrendering. Not in dramatic moments, but in the quiet seconds when you let distraction decide, let fear speak, and let weakness lead. The weak version of you wakes up and immediately gives his mind away. To a notification, to a fear, to a wandering thought that says, maybe I can't. He follows every emotion like a servant. He believes every thought just because it showed up. He confuses noise with truth and wonder why his focus collapses under pressure. But not you, not anymore. If you want to rise, you must train your mind like a soldier trains for war, with discipline, with clarity, with purpose. Because no weapon is more dangerous than a mind under command. Not strength, not talent, not even knowledge. A trained mind doesn't react. It responds. It sees chaos and creates strategy. It turns fear into fuel. It doesn't panic. It plans. And it starts with what you allow in. Guard your inputs, because what you let in becomes what you think. And what you think becomes what you believe. And what you believe becomes who you become. You cannot rise with a weak mental diet. You cannot lead with a mind ruled by noise. So create stillness, on purpose. Make time to reflect, to breathe, to sit with your thoughts and challenge them. Ask, is this fear true? Is this doubt earned? Is this belief serving me or chaining me? The weak version of you never questions his mind. He lets it run wild, but the strong version of you builds walls around his focus. He defends his attention like a warrior defends his gate. Picture your mind as a fortress. Every day, enemies try to enter laziness, jealousy, distraction, insecurity. If you're not standing guard, they win. Discipline is your guard. Truth is your sword. Repetition is your shield. You must speak strength over your life, even when it feels fake. Especially when it feels fake. Say, I am focused. I am grounded. I am building. I will not break. Because your words are commands, and your mind listens. You don't need to master every thought, but you must command the dominant ones. So when the world gets loud, get still. When your mind races, slow it down. And when the storm hits, don't panic. Stand in the silence and remember, you trained for this. Pain is not your enemy. It's not here to punish you, it's here to prepare you. But the weak version of you doesn't understand that. He flinches at discomfort. He sees struggle and assumes he's doing something wrong. He says, this hurts, I must be on the wrong path. But pain isn't punishment. Pain is truth. Pain is a compass. It points to where your growth lives. You cannot become who you're meant to be while avoiding everything sharp, heavy, or hot. You cannot rise without first being pressed. The version of you that you admire in your mind. He was built in fire. You want strength. You'll find it under pressure. You want clarity. You'll find it on the other side of confusion. You want greatness. You'll find it in the moments that break average men. That's where the transformation lives. Not in safety, but in the fire. The weak version of you runs from pain and calls it wisdom, but the strong version walks straight into it and calls it what it is. Training. Think of a blade. It's not forged in soft water and gentle air. It's hammered, burned, bent, and broken again and again until it's deadly sharp, unbreakable. That's you if you let the pain shape you. Ask yourself, what pain have you been avoiding? That conversation, that decision, that discipline you keep delaying. Avoiding pain doesn't protect you. It delays your evolution. You weren't built to break at the first sign of pressure. You were built to rise when tested. You were made to stand still in the storm, to look pain in the eye and not blink. Because pain is not weakness. It's the price of admission to becoming someone rare. And if you're hurting right now, good. That means you're in the forge. Stay there. Let it burn away the parts of you that can't come with you to the next level, the doubt, the laziness, the fear, the softness. Let the fire refine you. Because what survives it is ready. You don't have to enjoy pain, but you must respect it. Because every man who ever became anything worth remembering met pain and shook its hand. No one is coming to save you. Let that sink in deeply, fully, permanently. No mentor, no friend, no miracle, no perfect plan. No lifeboat is on the horizon. And that's not a tragedy, that's liberation. Because when you stop waiting to be rescued, you finally start to move. The weak version of you still believes in rescue. He clings to the fantasy that someone somewhere will step in to fix what's broken, to carry what's heavy, to tell him it's all going to be okay. But that's not life. That's fiction. And it's the reason he stays weak, because he gives away his power before he ever uses it. You want to become something extraordinary. Then take full responsibility. Look around. Everything broken in your life, your body, your finances, your focus, your habits, they are yours. And that's not shame, that's your starting point, because what's yours can be changed. The man who becomes unstoppable doesn't wait for opportunity. He creates it. He doesn't wish for a path. He builds it stone by stone, choice by choice. Imagine a man on an island. No help, no tools, no map, just trees and time. He doesn't wait. He builds a shelter, a fire, a signal, a plan. That man becomes the architect of his own salvation because he had no other choice. And neither do you. You can cry about what wasn't handed to you, or you can rise and take back your strength. You can wait for someone to open the door, or you can forge your own key. You can keep hoping for the perfect conditions, or you can accept this truth. You are all you've got. But that is enough. Because inside you is a builder, a warrior, a king. He doesn't ask for rescue. He becomes the one who rescues others. He doesn't pray for strength. He trains in difficulty until strength is inevitable. You don't need to be chosen. You need to choose yourself. Again, and again, and again. Until the man you're becoming no longer needs to be saved because he's the one people turn to when the fire comes. You must stop needing applause to act. Stop waiting for someone to see you to recognize your effort to say, good job. Because if you require validation to move, you'll collapse the moment no one is watching. The weak version of you performs. He thrives on attention. He trains harder when someone's filming. He speaks louder when someone's listening. He gives his best, but only when there's a stage. But that man never builds anything that lasts. Because real greatness isn't built in the spotlight. It's built in solitude. When you get up early and no one notices. When you finish the task and no one thanks you. When you show up again and again, even when the world forgets your name, that's where strength is born. Because the habits you build in private are the ones that define your character in public. You want to be powerful, then become undeniable in silence. Learn to act without eyes, to move without praise, to build when no one's clapping. Because the man who only moves when validated is easily stopped when criticized. But the man who moves from conviction, from fire, from internal command, he is unshakable. Picture a craftsman in a quiet forest. No audience, no cheers, no spotlight, just his hands. And the work. Day after day, beam after beam, he builds. Why? Because he knows what no one else can see. That the structure he's building will one day sail. That the discipline, the detail, the pain, it will become something real. And when the time comes when the ship touches water, they'll ask, where did this come from? But you will know. It came from the darkness, from the silence, from the days you showed up without needing anything but your word. So let the world sleep on you. Let them ignore your work. Let them forget your name. You build anyway. Because the man you're becoming isn't fueled by applause. He's built on self-respect. He claps for himself. He doesn't wait to be seen, he sees himself. And when the world finally notices when the spotlight arrives, you won't need it, because you already became the man worth clapping for. Starting is easy. Anyone can start. Most people do start again and again and again. New year, new plan, new month, new promise. It's exciting. It feels like momentum. But starting is nothing without finishing. The weak version of you lives in beginnings. He loves the rush of day one. He buys the journal, creates the schedule, makes the post. But when the high fades, so does his commitment. He begins the workout plan, then skips the fourth day. He reads the first 2 chapters, then puts the book back on the shelf. He wakes up early once, then goes back to sleeping in. He's addicted to spark, but allergic to fire. Because fire takes sustained heat. But the strong version of you, the one who finishes, he understands this. Completion is where character is carved, where identity is earned. Finishing makes you trust yourself. Because when you finish what you said you'd do, even once you begin to believe your word has weight, that belief spills into everything. You walk taller, you speak with calm, you move with confidence, not from ego, but from evidence. Ask yourself honestly, what would your life look like if you simply finished what you started? Not perfectly, not quickly, just consistently. That business idea, that routine, that commitment you made in silence, what if it didn't die in the middle? Because that's where most men quit, in the middle. When no one's cheering, when progress is slow, when it's hard and quiet and boring. But finishing is sacred. It builds more than outcomes, it builds you. So go back, pick it up, dust it off, and decide that this time it gets done. Make finishing your identity. I finish. I follow through. I don't break. Not because it's easy, not because it's fun, but because that's who I am. That's the difference between the average man and the man who leaves a legacy. The average starts. The exceptional finishes. Do hard things on purpose. The weak version of you sees difficulty as a disease. He hopes the day is easy, the challenge is light, the pressure is low. And the moment it's not, he folds. Because to him, resistance means rejection. Struggle feels like a sign to quit. He believes that if something hurts, it must be wrong. But you, the man you're becoming, you know better. You know that strength isn't found in comfort. It's built in adversity. The strongest version of you doesn't wait for pain to arrive. He chooses it. He walks into challenge. He trains in difficulty before the world forces it on him. Not for applause, not for attention, but because he understands this sacred truth. Pressure reveals power. You don't find your limits when life is easy. You find them when your lungs are burning, your hands are shaking, your legs want to stop, and you keep moving. The hard things. They are not punishment. They are the forge. And you don't rise by avoiding the forge, you rise by staying in it. So ask yourself, when was the last time you did something hard not because you had to, but because you chose to? When was the last time you pushed yourself past your comfort zone just to confront the part of you that still hides? Most men wait for struggle to find them, and then they panic when it does. But the rare ones, they train in the pain, so when the fire comes, they don't flinch. Picture the warrior. He doesn't sharpen his blade only when the war begins. He sharpens it daily, bleeding, stumbling, pushing, so when the battle arrives, he's not surprised, he's ready. That's you now. Every time you do the hard thing, the cold shower, the long run, the tough decision, you are building more than resilience. You are building proof. Proof that you are not a slave to comfort. Proof that you don't need perfect conditions to move. Proof that you are the kind of man who leads from discipline, not emotion. So don't just embrace the hard. Choose it. Lean into it. Because when you do hard things by choice, you become unshakable by force. And that is a man no storm can break. You don't need to improve the weak version of you. You need to eliminate him. You can't renovate a foundation built on fear. You can't upgrade a frame that crumbles under pressure. You can't inspire a coward into courage. You have to bury him. The weak version of you, the one who quits, delays, hides, begs, he's had his time. And now his time is over. You've tried to fix him. You've given him chances. You've excused him with compassion, called his laziness self-care, his excuses valid, his delays normal. But the truth, he's been sabotaging you from the inside. And no empire is built with termites in the foundation. So today we stop trying to improve that version. We kill him. You don't do that with words. You do it with choices. Every time you show up when he would have quit, he dies a little. Every time you say no to his excuses, he fades. Every rep, every early morning, every act of discipline buries him deeper. You don't owe him a funeral. You owe yourself a rebirth. You are not here to patch the cracks in a broken frame. You are here to build something new, stronger, sharper, forged in fire, not in softness. That means letting go of the parts of you that feel safe but serve no purpose. That old identity, gone. The one who doubts himself, the one who complains, the one who needs to be told what to do. He cannot follow you into the future you're building. He can't survive the pressure you're about to apply. And he shouldn't. Let him go. Bury him with silence and replace him with action. No declarations, no big announcements, just different results. The man who takes his place. He doesn't beg for belief. He becomes undeniable. He doesn't fear discomfort. He chooses it. He doesn't ask, can I? He decides, I will. This is your turning point. Not just a better version, a new one. Not patched, replaced. And the man who rises from that grave, he is dangerous. He is focused. He is free. You were not born to follow. You were born to command. But for too long, you've let your feelings take the wheel. I'm tired. I'm not in the mood. I'm overwhelmed. And just like that, your mission takes a back seat. But here's the truth. Your emotions were never meant to lead. They were meant to inform. The weak version of you. He obeys every feeling. He thinks discomfort is a red light. He thinks anxiety is a stop sign. He thinks self-doubt is the voice of reason. But the strong version of you, he knows better. He hears the noise, but he doesn't take orders from it. He leads himself. He gives himself the command, and he follows through. Because leadership, real leadership, doesn't begin when you have a team. It begins when you learn to govern yourself. When you become the voice that says, go, now, again. Even when everything inside you screams for comfort, rest, retreat. The man who rises doesn't negotiate with his lesser instincts. He gives them orders, and they obey. You think discipline is about structure. It's about authority. Your authority over you. That moment when the alarm rings and your body begs for more sleep, that is the moment you either obey comfort or lead yourself through resistance. That moment when the task feels dull and the progress feels invisible, you either walk away or you command your focus to stay. That's leadership. That's what separates amateurs from masters. Because the world is full of men who can take orders. But rare is the man who can give them to himself and listen. No one is coming to remind you, to correct you, to push you. And that's not your disadvantage. That's your power. Because if you learn to lead yourself now, nothing can own you later. Not failure, not fatigue, not fear. So decide today. You are no longer led by emotion. You are led by commitment. You don't wait for motivation. You give the command. You don't hope for drive. You become the driver. From this day forward, you are not your feelings. You are your follow-through. And the man who leads himself can lead anything. There comes a moment not loud, not dramatic, but final. A moment when you decide, I don't quit anymore. Not on this goal. Not on myself. Not ever again. The weak version of you. He keeps the door open, just a crack. Maybe if it gets too hard. Maybe if I don't see results. Maybe if I change my mind. He calls it flexibility. But it's escape. And every time things get heavy, that door creaks open and he walks through it. But not this time. This time you bolt it shut. You weld it. You burn it to ash and bury the key. Because quitting is no longer an option. You're not here to test the waters. You're here to dive in and swim until you reach shore or drown trying. This isn't about obsession. This is about ownership, about refusing to abandon yourself when the path gets brutal. You've quit before. You know how it feels. That hollow pit in your stomach. That weight of regret. That silent shame. Never again. You're not quitting this time because now you know what's on the other side. Not just the win, but the you who survives the war. You want to know what separates the unshakable from the unfinished. They don't even consider quitting. Not because it never gets hard, but because the decision to endure was already made. It's not up for debate. It's who they are. And now it's who you are. The man who doesn't quit doesn't need to be the fastest, the smartest, the strongest. He just needs to outlast. And in a world that breaks easily, that man becomes rare. That man becomes feared. That man becomes free. Because once you remove quitting from your vocabulary, you become immune to failure. You'll still fall. You'll still suffer. But you'll never stop. And that makes you unstoppable. So today, you make a vow. No ceremony, no drama. Just this. I finish what I start. I fight until the end. I never quit. Burn that into your bones. Live it. Breathe it. Be it. Because when quitting dies, you're finally free to rise. You've heard the voice. You've walked through the fire. You've stood face to face with every excuse, every fear, every version of yourself that ever held you back. And now only one thing remains. Decide who you are and act like it. You're not broken. You're becoming. You're not behind. You're building. You're not waiting. You're waking up. This isn't about motivation. It's about identity. You don't need more hype. You need to remember who you are when no one's watching, and decide again and again, I don't stop. You've killed the weak version. You've shut the door on quitting. You've become the kind of man who leads himself with fire, with vision, with unstoppable force. And from here, every step forward is yours. Every brick you lay is sacred. Every challenge becomes fuel. So when the noise returns, when the world tempts you with comfort, when fear whispers its old familiar lies, stand taller, walk straighter, and say without hesitation, that man is dead. I move forward now. I don't go back. Because this isn't just another day. This is the first day of the rest of your life built with discipline, conviction, and unyielding self-respect. The mission continues. The fire grows. And you are just getting started. If this woke something up in you, don't keep it to yourself. Rewatch it. Share it with the one who needs to hear it. Comment with the words, "I don't go back," and let the world know the old you is gone. The builder has arrived.